What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Female Bodybuilding Girls in Gear. I'm your host, Tommy Stiles. With me, as always, Shannon Seeley. This is the Muscle Media Network. If you haven't already, like, share, comment, subscribe to this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to be notified of content dropping. We have 4 different segments putting out various amounts of podcasts every single week. If you'd like to be a member of the Muscle Media Network Facebook group, just go to Facebook, search Muscle Media Network, join. It's a great place to talk bodybuilding, competing, lifestyle, all things related. And then thanks to our sponsor, Kodiak Bodybuilding Apparel, for sponsoring the network. You can hear my dog whining in the background. Shannon, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I mean, when we put this out, it'll be past the holidays, but right now it's what do we have? 3 days, 2 days before Christmas, 3 days before Christmas. So gyms are packed. My gym's packed right now as I'm looking out at my window from it. I'm sure your gym's getting a little packed with those New Year's resolutionists and everyone coming home from school. So it's been fun catching up and seeing people at the gym that I don't typically get to see. Uh, how's your gym looking down there?
Mine's actually good because a lot of the students are home for Christmas time. So like school's not in session. So this is actually the slowest it is all year at my gym. But it'll turn around. I mean, come next 2 weeks, it'll pick up heavy. So, but I do have one of the better gyms. We have a leg day only gym portion of the gym that just opened. So it's in a different part of the plaza. So when you're training legs, you go to that part. Anything else, you go to the main gym. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, Diving into today, just kind of round table discussion. You mentioned pet peeves in the gym. What are some things you see that are common mistakes that let's try to not make these mistakes moving forward in 2024?
Um, well, obviously, first let's go, with the new gym, New Year's resolutions, you're gonna get the influx of individuals coming into the gym. Obviously, be respectful. I work in a gym pretty much full time, so I see a lot. My biggest pet peeve doesn't matter for male, female, like re-rack your weights. That's just common courtesy. I don't know how many times I have to remind people to re-rack their weights, and I feel like a dick doing it. But if you got 20 plates on the leg press and you walk away, it's kind of I don't want to work out before my workout, basically. Uh, I was just discussing this with T before we went on. One of the things I've started to notice, and I'm not sure if it's just the newer I wouldn't even say it's the newer generation because I'm seeing this from older individuals too. But there's this weird stigma about using sleeves and straps when lifting, and I think there might be a misconception too because I just broke it down for someone the other day. The difference between like wraps and sleeves, and I don't know if I mean you and I know the difference between wraps and sleeve, but I guess most people don't know when someone's saying, "Oh, I'm squatting and I'm using." Wraps, but they're using sleeves, vice versa. So sleeves are just basically what you would hear. Their sleeves, you put them right on your legs or your arms to help aid keep the joints warm and kind of help keep everything compressed as you're lifting. Where wraps we don't typically see for bodybuilders because you see it more in powerlifting where they're really compressing those joints as much as possible to really give that little bounce to help with the lifts. And for some reason, men and women alike think that using sleeves helps aid in their lifts. And I've been trying to tell people it's injury prevention more so than ever. If you're over 30 years old, absolutely, when you're benching more than 200 pounds, I really think that you should have elbow sleeves on, or you should have some sort of wrist stabilizer sleeve on. The same with squats. You need to wear the sleeves after like 225, 300. I mean, obviously the weights are going to vary, but it's more about protecting your joints to keep the longevity of your health up with this sport because I've seen it. It's happened to me. I know it's happened to you, but when you aren't protecting, you aren't proactive with your joints, um, it deteriorates quite quickly. And you see these older bodybuilders, not even older, but 30 and 40 years old, having knee problems, hip problems, elbow problems, tennis elbow really bad because they weren't proactive when they started out with protecting their joints and using the proper tools in the gym. Even so, like I know when I do my deadlifts, I use figure eight straps. I think you actually turned me on to them. I'm like, that's a huge component for me. And I use those all the time. And it's not aiding me in any way. More so it's helping me pull the weight, but it's not making it easier. And I think that people think that using these tools are making it easier to lift and it's going to compensate your muscle growth, where in reality, no, it's going to make you better. It's going to make you a better athlete by using these tools. They make them for a reason.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to note is it's not cheating. I don't know where it was dawned on that you're cheating if you use straps or wraps or sleeves. Like, cheating what? There's no governing gym body that penalizes you if they see you wearing sleeves when you squat or you're deadlifting with straps. Like, there's no cons to using it. If you're training for a powerlifting meet, then yeah, you want to deadlift without straps. But outside of that, like, I don't know why you would ever go into a back day without a strap, personally, because if your grip is at any sort of an issue, you're taking away from hypertrophy, because grip strength or grip overall is the limiting factor in why you might not be able to progress. So yeah, a lot of, like, I have that conversation usually with newer people. They almost like ask if they can. It's one of those things where I've been using those things for so long that I just forget that other people don't. That's always in my gym bag. I've been using knee sleeves for 6 or 7 years. I have worn elbow sleeves. I don't anymore. I mean, all of it's going to come down to personal preference. You don't have to go buy all this stuff when you hear this thinking you need it, but there are like, I wear knee sleeves when I squat. I'm 32, been training 20 years. I think as you age, things, male or female, your early 20s, no issues. You're probably fine. Late 20s, you start to notice tweaks a little bit. Early 30s is when you really start to notice. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, maybe recovery time takes longer. Maybe you're just more aware of like aches and pains you've had some injuries, and then so on. I think it goes into your 40s to where, like, you really have to be proactive with joint health, taking care of your joints, and your body isn't, it needs more as far as warm up and proactive exercises that you might be doing, prehab stuff, because you're not in your early 20s anymore. That's kind of aging in general. When you've been lifting weights that whole period, if you have, you're going to be probably aging and deteriorating faster than someone who isn't. I mean, lifting weights extremely isn't the most healthy thing you can do for your body. Resistance training is good for your body. Taking it to the extreme of bodybuilding, powerlifting, strongman, whatever, that's probably where you're going to start to see some counterintuitive measures too. But obviously you're here because you love it. So the bottom line is, yeah, straps, wraps, whether you use knee wraps or knee sleeves. I know bodybuilders who use knee wraps. That's their choice. I never have. I just never I did it one time and I never did it again. Not because I'm above it. It's a way easier to pull up a knee sleeve rather than it is to sit down and wrap my knees. I don't know how to do it very well. I don't have someone with me who's proficient at it. So it's just something that I never did.
What would you say? I mean, like, I know when I first started training, I think actually when I first started training, and this, nobody make fun of me for this because I know, but I was a glove girl. When I first started, I had the full gloves on my hands, and um, I never really understood the benefit of it. And then when I switched to straps, it was actually one of my coaches that switched me to straps just to feel the difference. Because I was having issues with, I have carpal tunnel, so my carpal tunnel would flare up a lot. And just using those being able to use those straps and kind of compress the blood flow with that made it a lot easier for me to lift and control my lifts. But I was going to ask you, if you had to go back, what will be 3 things as a beginner that you would say to have in your gym bag? Just 3 things, like 3 basic things that you would say any beginner, they don't have to use it all the time, but what would be smart to have in the gym bag?
As far as lifting gear,
Mhm.
straps, so wrist straps for back movements. I think that's the most universally used. whether you need to strap your wrists for like pressing and wrist stability, that's going to be more individual. I know a lot of people who have never worn a wrist strap in their life and they can bench over 400 pounds. I just have, I broke one wrist and I just have narrow joints, so my wrists are unstable sometimes. I think knee sleeves would be next, number two. And then because it does have a lot of application for a lot of people, though, I don't think it should be a crutch, is probably a weight belt. I've actually, over the last, I don't wear a belt anymore. And I train the best I ever have without it. My core's stable, my core is strong. I could breathe in my lifts. I never tell clients they have to wear one or don't have to wear one. This is my personal preference. I've got plenty of videos on my Instagram wearing a belt. I've got plenty of videos not wearing a belt. By no means does making or wearing a belt make you stronger. I think it might just be like a comfort measure for a lot of people to know it's there. But I don't think you should wear a belt every minute you're in the gym, every workout, because you're not ever developing core muscles. If you're doing that, you're just kind of have a crutch.
Yeah, I would also say going with the belt thing is another thing that I see and I don't really agree with is training with a waist trainer on. I feel like I've seen that quite a bit here where I have women that are training with a waist trainer on and if you want to waist train, good, go ahead. But I don't think that the gym is an effective way to waist train. I feel like you need to train outside the gym because I think it's too much compressing all of the movements. And I also feel like it limits your kind of range. If you're wearing a full size waist trainer that's almost like a corset style, I mean, it's really limits kind of your movement. Like, I mean, I've tried it once and I couldn't even really bend over. So I don't understand how people can train with waist trainers on in the gym because it hinders pretty much every movement and every mechanical movement that you're doing at the gym. I don't know if you've had clients like that, but I would say I'm not pro, I'm not against, but if you want to waist train, go for it. But I don't think it's a good idea to train with a waist trainer on at the gym.
Yeah, I'm not for it, but I'm not somebody that's gonna like anti.
Yeah.
I don't do it. I don't tell clients to do it. I don't tell clients to waist train. I think it's more of a person. Again, it's kind of like if you're gonna do something like a digestive drink in the morning, I don't ever make someone do that. If they have a personal preference that they like to do, as long as it's not like adding calories, I'll just let them keep it because it's what they like to do. But I feel waist training can be done with just vacuums and actually training your abs hard 3 to 4 times a week. I think a lot of people get obsessed with like wearing the waist trainer, females especially, and like they don't actually train their abs progressively. The abs are a muscle. They need to be trained with, resistance, just like any other muscle to develop, muscular density to the ab wall. Waist training, a lot of things go into keeping the waist tight. It's not just, slapping on the corset style trainer and wearing it 24/7. How you control your core. That's why I think morning vacuums and TVA training is important. The foods you're eating, obviously, if you're having a high inflammatory diet, that's going to take effect on the waist over time. So there's a lot of ways to incorporate waist training and keeping a tight waist that you don't have to necessarily wear a trainer. I brought my waist down 2 inches from 21 to 23. And that was largely just because of food choices. I had a better off seasons where I stayed away from the foods that were triggers for me. With that came less inflammation. Obviously there was some supplementation in play to help, but the point is like, I never tell someone to wear a waist trainer. I don't think it's necessary. I think a lot of having a tight waist and keeping a tight waist comes down to genetics, but also I don't think you have to commit to wearing a waist trainer to keep a tight waist. I just don't think your waist is going to grow if you're taking proper measures to train it and, eat a clean diet.
Yeah, I agree. My waist is extremely small this time. I think I went from a 32 down to a 25 for stage, and vacuums played a large part. Like I vacuum every day. when I'm brushing my teeth. That's how I know that I literally, when I'm brushing my teeth, I'll do vacuum holds. It takes me about 5 minutes. I'll do them in the morning and I do them at night. And it's really been a game changer for me in the aesthetics of my waist. Um, and then to point out too is I'll see individuals trying to keep that waist snatched and keep it nice and narrow, but then they're out here doing really heavy oblique training, which is another thing that you have to be mindful of. Is if you're trying to keep the waist tight, but you're lifting and you're doing, like here at my gym, we have a machine like Russian twist, that the oblique twist. People load it up to 100 pounds and are doing those, and it doesn't make sense to me that you're going to be training your obliques that hard, but you're really trying to keep your waist tapered, because your obliques are your side abs. So if you're building them, they're going to get bigger, and in turn make your waist bigger. So make sure that if you're really have that mindset to keep your waist, a little bit more snatched, don't overload the weight as well. I literally just had this conversation with my coach yesterday because we were talking about my next season's goals. And, I have very good abs, but it's very hard for me to not overdevelop them. So one of the things is he's like, do not train obliques at all, because it's going to throw the aesthetics off of your waist. So keep that in mind, especially as you're coming up, if you're, a higher ranking, competitor or even a pro, and you're really working to try to keep that waist. I would say really be mindful of oblique movements, just so that way we're not blowing that waist out and giving you a more boxy look.
Yeah, no, that whole holding the weight on one side and crunching into it, that is the stupidest lift you can do. Don't ever do that lift if you want to not look like SpongeBob SquarePants in life. But no, I think that's all good stuff. As far as what are some common things you see as far as females in nutrition, mistakes they make, dogmatic things that have been believed? A lot of this stuff, like same thing with the lifting accessories, a lot of it's just dogma that gets passed down to where people hear something from somebody along the way and they're just committed to be the truth of how it is.
So I think it's really interesting. So I guess people have to understand is, and everyone, as you delve into this in the sport more, is what works for somebody is not going to work for somebody else. And that has to come down with genetics, hormones. I mean, I have people that are diabetic, and when I'm doing their protocols, I have to really watch their blood sugar. And I have people who are insulin sensitive. So for nutrition, I hear it all the time, especially when I get lifestyle clients. It's usually sugar. I'll get somebody, they'll do their intake, and it's pretty much, I've been avoiding carbs and I've been avoiding sugar. That's the number one things. And we've talked about it before. Like, you can't fear carbs. Obviously, there's the simple carbs, the complex carbs, and then you have the fibrous carbs, and there's stuff that you can utilize to help digest them better, but you shouldn't be avoiding carbs altogether. Like, you need them. That's the biggest one. But I think the hardest thing I have to tell people is the food. And we talked about this before, is everyone just wants to start a program. What's the best fat burner? What's the best? And I'm like, you got to use food as your nutrition source first. Wholesome, nutrient dense food is going to do everything for you that you need. And then you can add in any other supplementation you want once you have everything built, and see how your body is responding naturally to food. And for some reason, I have women that have starved themselves for years and years, their metabolism shot. And so when I am feeding them, obviously their weight's going to influx a little bit because they're feeding for the first time with food, and they're not just taking all these weight loss pills. So you have to understand that food is so good for your body when you learn how to eat it properly. But if you're starving yourself, or you're doing these where you're doing fasting for 36 hours and then jamming everything in, and you're being inconsistent about it, that's when you're not getting the results. Another biggest pet peeve of mine is when somebody starts a program and maybe they're 40 pounds overweight, and they've been with the program for a month and maybe have only been down 5 pounds. Well, I want to lose weight faster. And I tell people, it didn't take you a month to put on 40 pounds. You're not going to lose 40 pounds in a month. So it's almost like the patience is patience is a virtue with this sport. We'll say that, but patience is really hard for people who want quick fix results. And we're in this generation, in this time of our lives right now, where people want quick fixes, instant results, instant gratification without putting in the work. And the bottom line is, You have to put the work in, you have to put the patience in to get where you want to go.
Yeah, no, that's I think speaking to females directly, there's a fear of eating a lot of food. You know, none of the girls I work with do I, I'm not saying rice cakes are only for prep, but you need to learn how to eat meals too. It's not just rice cakes and whey protein shakes. And, you should have meals that go into Tupperware, meat, rice, potatoes, avocado. There's plenty of different whole foods. I'll use rice cakes. I get it. I get people have busy lives, and sometimes it's easier to get down a few rice cakes, pre-workout, maybe with some almond butter and some protein. That's perfectly okay. Or post-workout, in the post-workout window, to get some fast digesting carbs in. That's all fine, but there does come a point where you have to eat whole food too, and build your calories up. I think a lot of women who've done the yo-yo dieting they've never built a metabolism and built their food up. Food, like you said, it is important, because if say you want to lose fat, but you come to me or you come to a coach and you're barely eating 1,300 calories a day as it is, your food choices are horrible. A lot of these people tend to be scarcity eating throughout the day, and then they usually have some sort of comfort feel-good dinner. And these people are usually probably scared of food, or they have a phobia, or they've yo-yo dieted all their life. So you give them a base plan with food, and within the first few days of trying to get through it, it's like, this is so much food, I'm so full, I can't eat it. Like, well, there's probably a lot happening here. It's probably that you're eating whole food, so it feels like you're eating a lot, but in reality, you might only be eating a couple hundred more calories than what you told me you were eating as like a sample day. It's just clean whole food that is going to leave you more satiated. You're not used to feeling full, which then will prevent off-plan eating or binge eating, because you're being satiated, and that those hunger signals aren't cueing you to make bad choices all day. So the idea that like women, especially in an off-season setting for competitors, aren't going to be progressive with their eating, like, it's just like men. You just might eat less based off body size and all of that, but the goal for you is to push your calories as high up as you can before prep, be able to take in that amount of calories, not getting fat, and have a bigger, workload as far as calories you can pull from when it's time to diet. Because if you start a prep at 1,800 calories, like, yeah, you are going to be the people that have to spend weeks below 1,000 calories to get in shape, because you didn't do your due diligence in the off season. You didn't get uncomfortable and build up and be full. And, we spoke on social stigmas for females over males on a different episode, but unfortunately that means probably being big, fluffy, and soft for the better part of half a year at least, maybe longer. And that's just how it goes. You don't get to have the best of both worlds until you've put on a good amount of muscle and your body holds muscle to where maybe you do get to be leaner in the off season. But in the early years, if you really want to excel in bodybuilding, and this goes for any division, because any division is going to require more muscle than you have now, you're going to have to be okay with eating a lot of food, feeling full and probably gross as a female more often than not. Maybe just realizing that you're going to have a baggy clothes wardrobe and you're not going to like how you look. Again, that's all part of it. So I think, from a nutrition standpoint, I just see a huge fear of pushing food up and being okay with the results of that, which is, the positive is increased training performance. You're going to feel, you should be your strongest ever at that look. So I try to divert people's attention to that. Let's focus on performance. Let's focus on movements and getting strong at them. Let's obsess on that rather than, what the mirror is or how you feel in your check-in pictures. unfortunately, it is what it is. This is bodybuilding. There's no other way.
Yeah. And going into like, even when you are at a deficit, or when I do get clients in, like the first thing I do when I do their intakes is I always want to say, give me a kind of an idea of how you're eating, especially if it's somebody who's not in the sport and they came to me for lifestyle coaching. And I pretty much will have them send me their food for the last couple of days of how they've been eating to kind of get a calorie sense of where they're at. And 90% of them are under 1,200 calories. And that's another thing, is when you are that low, your metabolism is pretty much shot. So when you reach out to a coach, or when you're reaching out to T or I, the first thing I do is I have to feed you. I have to get your metabolism up to a proper level that your body's not in this sort of like fight or flight starvation mode. Understand that when you are, it doesn't matter how old you are. It is. I can notice it a lot more with postmenopause women. Postmenopause, especially when you are playing the starvation game, when you're postmenopause, your body holds so much more. It will hold so much more fat because you aren't feeding it. And I think that's the worst thing you can do, is when you're going into menopause and postmenopause, and you are trying to eat at such a low calorie deficit. Your hormones are already so out of whack, and for you not to feed your body properly, your body just holds everything. And I see a lot more visceral fat and a lot more of that pooch area that the women tend to get in older women, because I'll ask them what they ate and they're like, "Oh, I'm doing keto, or I'm doing fasting. I'm only eating 2 meals a day. I'm eating 800 calories." You cannot lose weight when you're at 800 calories. I cannot put you on a program morally, health wise, even as a coach, and try to get you to drop even more weight at an 800 calorie diet. And I've had people that reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I'm eating 800 calories. I'm not losing weight. I want to go lower." And it's one of those things you have to understand that, like in a logic sense, like you need to eat. Your body, even just at a baseline to function throughout the day, minimally, will skew a little bit. Minimally, you need 1,200 calories, minimally. And I would say 1,200 is just like, that's pushing it based on your height and weight. But if you're eating below 1,000 and you're proud of that every day, you are going to have severe health issues. We see the kidneys and the livers, everything's fighting with each other because they're not getting the proper fuel and nutrients to sustain your body. That's when we'll see the hair falling out. We'll see issues with, their urine. We'll see issues with their joints. Their workouts are shit. Their muscles start eating away. So be very mindful. And I think I see it more with lifestyle clients, but I do see this post show for some competitors who are really trying to keep their post show, trying to keep their diet as long as possible to maintain that level of leanness. It's not possible. Your body's going to shut down and it's going to backfire, and you're just going to start getting bloated. Your weight's going to go up. You're going to start holding everything that you're eating. So just know that food is just like a supplement. Like it's you eat too much, you're going to gain weight. You eat too less, it's going to mess up your body long term permanently, depending on the duration of it. Feeding into the nutrition, what goes hand in hand, let's talk about the cardio aspect of that too, because I've seen it. I know as a coach, you've probably seen it. Cardio is great. Okay. We all have to do it. But I see people who I'll give them, "Hey, I want you to start out 3 times a week at 20 minutes. They'll do their check-in. "Hey, I did 6 times a week at 45 minutes this week." Well, that's not what I asked you to do, because now what happens is you've already put yourself in that deficit even more, and I'm not feeding you to equal out what you're burning. So you're thinking you're doing a good thing for your body, but instead now it's actually harming it more because I did not feed you the proper way to compensate for the additional cardio. That's the biggest pet peeve of mine I think I've ever had, is I'll give someone a cardio goal, and that's one of those things you don't want to be an overachiever with. You don't want to do more cardio than required, because if you are in a weight loss stance for that point, I have to add more cardio in order for you to keep dropping weight if you're already overcompensating for it. I don't know if you get clients like that, but I get that quite a lot, especially with females, where they just love cardio and they'll just keep doing more and more of it. I'm like, dude, you did double what I told you to do this week.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think that's probably habits that need to be addressed more than anything. There's Women tend to, especially ones that don't really love strength training as much, they tend to love cardio more. So, they become little cardio bunnies who are just they'll want to do that all day, but strength training just really isn't that appealing to them. Some, the goal is to teach women that strength training it's a good thing. There's a lot of benefits that can come from properly training your body in terms of resistance and focusing on getting strong. Like the big fear of, getting too bulky or too big is, we've smashed that to pieces for years. It's not a thing. If you're someone who's ever said the words, I want to tone, or I want something more tone, like you want more muscle and less body fat. Toning isn't a thing. Losing body fat and having more muscle is. So, I think it's just, that's part of the dogma of the fears that have been created amongst the female population, is that, there's a fear of getting too big. So they don't want to really get too obsessed with lifting weights, when it's like, that should be actually where your focus is lifting weights and, keeping cardio at a maintenance level. Obviously, in, contest preps for females, yeah, cardio is going to get up there. I've pushed girls to 90 minutes a day. I've pushed girls to 2 hours a day during certain stretches of a prep. I've pushed girls low calories for, periods of time in a prep. If that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. You just can't live there. So if you did spend a period of time at 100 calories in a contest prep, you have to be okay knowing that that can't be life. After that prep, you need to be diligent and focus on getting the calories up, pushing food back up, getting your hormones back online, because natural or enhanced, your hormones are going to take a hit when you're in a diet phase like that. And that's where a lot of the fear-based eating comes in, can be post-show, as girls, they automatically assume they're getting fat if the scale starts going up. And it's like, you are getting fat. Your body fat is coming back up to a healthy level to allow your body to have proper hormonal function. So, you are getting fatter, but it's not a negative. You have to be okay with gaining that body fat back. The prep look and the close to the show look is not sustainable. And that's where a lot of long-term problems are going to come into play if you aren't mentally strong enough to accept that there's seasons to the year. You have to be big and soft, especially as a female. Males, we can kind of get away with it a little differently because I can stay on drugs all year. Like, there's no risk of me becoming more of a man with virilization taking drugs all year. As a female, you have different things to worry about. So you don't have the luxury of being on PEDs throughout the year as much as a male. So with that comes the acceptance that you're going to be normal, softer. The delts aren't going to be capped. The vascularity is probably not going to be blistering. You can still have vascularity and be off everything. It just matters, what your genetics are, what your body fat's at, stuff like that. But you have to just learn to love all the seasons that go into competitive bodybuilding as a female, because if you don't, you will be one of the ones who really, really struggles. And then you get that's where the yo-yo dieting might come in, like, or those people end up, competing for 9 months of the year and then getting fed up with off season or depressed after 2 to 3 months. So they go back into a prep, and they do that a few years. And then by that point, you have just dug such a deep grave to get out of that. It's going to take a ton of work and mental fortitude to be able to get out of it, because what you're looking at to get out of that is going to be very, very uncomfortable, as far as it's going to require a lot of pulling back, less training, less cardio, more focus on building up the calories because you've spent so long, putting yourself in a hole. So rather than getting there, learn the habits that are necessary. So to answer your question, yeah, like I have people that do extra. And then I usually just have a conversation, like explaining why extra isn't the move. Address the behavior rather than, yell at them or tell them, look down on them. It's just like, hey, you wanted a goal or you want to get somewhere. That's why you did more cardio. Let's focus on our training performance. Let's focus on, this or that, whatever, I need to direct their attention to. But the extra cardio is more just it's a learned behavior based off something else in their past, probably.
Yeah, and I do for lifestyle clients, for competitors, I don't focus a lot, but for lifestyle clients, we do a kind of a little bit segment of a psychological aspect of like behaviors and traumas and triggers, just so that way we can see if there's stress eating, closet eating, all of that. Um, but like circling back to like with rebounds with females and coming off everything, and I know we discussed this in one of their other podcasts, but just getting your period back. And I think the biggest thing, and I know my biggest struggle was learning how to cope with that ghrelin hormone post show is probably, and you have to deal with it too. And I think that just comes with maturity of the sport. But your body's like after, after show when it is just, it wants to be fed, and you have that first bite of something that is off your plan, or you have your first cheat meal after you haven't had it in so long. And that ghrelin hormone is there and it's just on fire. Most new competitors that aren't seasoned that are coming into that and experience their first and second rebound off, and that ghrelin hormone is just activated. It's very hard to take a step back and just realize like you have to set boundaries for yourself mentally, because you're fighting that. Your body's going to tell you you're hungry. You are going to. I did it. My first show, I said this at a past podcast. I put on 36 pounds my first 2 days post show, because I was starving. I mean, I could not physically eat anymore, but my ghrelin hormone was like, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And that's very important for you to be self-aware, and your body has just been through the most stressful time with this competition prep. So everything's going to feel a little bit out of whack. And when you are adding food in that you normally aren't, your body's like, yeah, give me that. And that ghrelin hormone's like, come on. So you have to, if you are trying to avoid that post show extreme weight gain, stay on your reverse. Have your cheat meal once or twice, talk to your coach. That's why you need to work with a coach post show too. And follow those. I mean, I feel like the post show, that first 8 weeks post show is the most crucial time to kind of stabilize your hormones, your weight, and make sure that you aren't going to, if you put on that 36 pounds in that 2 weeks, it's going to take you 12 weeks to get it off. It's going to be twice as much work because your body's just going to keep piling on those pounds. So be mindful of that when you are rebounding, especially if you're a newer competitor. You're going to be hungry, and your body's going to say that it's hungry, and it's not hungry. Like your hormones are going to be saying stuff to you that you don't need. So that's very, very, I didn't know that my first show. You didn't know that your first show. I mean, we're just eating everything we could. So, and I didn't even learn about the ghrelin hormone until I got into this, and got into schooling for this. So,
Yeah. No, I mean there's a reason why the hunger is so high. I think, and this is directed at competitors, like new or not, there is enough information being put out. We're putting out information right now. There's really no excuse anymore that I will allow for not following a reverse plan. I do not care how hungry you are. You are not going to tell me any sort of story that's going to make me feel bad for how hungry you are. I get, I'm more hungry post show than I am in prep. I don't have any issues with hunger in prep. Post show, it's like I actually have food focus. I think about, Snickers bars and shit I would never care about in that first usually 3 to 4 weeks. Now that's where you have to be okay knowing that you're going to push your calories up as far as your base diet. That doesn't mean that you get to have, go to Texas Roadhouse and then have ice cream the next day. And then you're not adding snacks and bullshit every single day. Your focus should be on pushing the diet or pushing the clean food up and pushing your calories up that way, because that's is what's going to lead to a successful rebound. First of all, that food is more satiating. It's going to leave you fuller, which is going to leave you less hungry, which means you're not as liable to make bad choices. So many times I've gotten someone's update a week or two post show. Hey, I had a moment this week, ate everything in sight, felt really bad about it. Like, yeah, now you're creating a bad behavior. You probably punished yourself and did extra cardio too, right? Like, so you're creating this system of bad behaviors that I just went over a little bit ago, all because you can't keep a little bit of mental fortitude going that you had in prep. Just because that the show's over, like you're working towards what's next now. And if there isn't a next show in mind right away, which is totally fine, you don't always have to have one lined up. You're always working on having good habits and having self-control. Hunger is a part of life. Hunger is a part of bodybuilding. There's going to be periods where you don't have hunger, and which is where you need to get in an off season, truthfully, is to getting to that point where you're almost so full you don't want to think about food. And then there's periods where you're going to be starving, and guess what? That's what you're choosing to do. So I don't put a ton of stock into hunger. I think if you're getting into competing and you want to earn the respect of being a competitor, you need to understand that it's goes beyond just the prep. You know, that Monday after the show, all of my clients are on reverse plans. They might get a free meal at the end of the week, but I don't do the whole, you know, I build in their food that they've already been eating and just bring up the calories. You know, fruits and vegetables go up because that's going to promote satiety, and you know, fruit can help curb that sweet tooth a little bit for people. And I'm going to just push up the things they've already been eating. Maybe I can find some, you know, if there's some foods that they wanted back in, or there's some things that, you know, we can reason with to help keep adherence up. I'm all about that. But at the end of the day, if you're a competitor and you want to become elite and you want to move up the ladder and actually contend to win shows or earn a pro card, you're not someone who's going to struggle in the rebound. You're going to accept that that's part of the game, and you're going to be an adult about your decisions. So I don't have empathy for it anymore. I think, you know, all the shit those people talk, I don't, you know, those posts where someone makes the choices to eat like an asshole for weeks and then wants to cry about where their body's at or this or that. Like, I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Tough luck. I mean, I could easily go off the rails and eat like a dick too. Maybe I wouldn't have the same response as far as gaining body fat, but you know, we all have the choice of what we put in our mouth. So I don't feel bad for it. And I think if you're a competitor who wants to put out big goals that you have, then understanding that you're going to just, you know, be responsible and treat the off season and the rebound like a prep is just expected, especially at this point with all the information out there. You know, my first prep post show, I ate more peanut butter M&Ms than I had in like 3 years I just sat there with a bag and kept going. You know, if you're someone who has binge eating tendencies, don't put those opportunities in front of you. Don't be someone stocking up on sweets in prep, because you've just set yourself up for failure. I never understand competitors that show up to the show with like an entire aisle's worth of just gluttonous sugary carbs. Like, what are you going to do with all that? Of course you're going to eat it. It's right in front of you. And I'm no better than, like, if I have a package of Oreos and I'm starving, I could eat the entire package. Like, you know what I mean? Don't tempt yourself. That's like an alcoholic going to the bar and sitting and ordering a beer and just letting it sit there. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah. I always tell this to my clients too, because one of my biggest thing I ask them, and I ask this to anyone who's starting a journey, you know, who's your number one support going to be? Is it going to be yourself? Are you going to throw a little bit with your spouse to help? But I see it a lot where it'll be like, well, I followed my diet perfectly, but I had chips in my pantry, and so I had those after just as like a little snack for eating good all day. And I'm like, listen, like I know what my trigger foods are. And just as much as I have that bodybuilding mindset, there are things like, I mean, if I kept a package of Oreos in my house, I probably would get stoned and go and eat them all. Not gonna lie, because so I know, like, I don't keep that shit in my house. Even if like somebody comes over and is bringing something, I get rid of it right away. I know what's going to keep me and my family healthy and what's going to allow us to reach our goals. But it's one of those things where if you are, you know, you're a bodybuilder, you live by yourself, but you have in the back of your pantry, you have, you know, all this extra Halloween candy or all this extra ice cream. You don't need it. Like, if you get rid of the temptation, I'm trusting you. Like, when I get stoned now, I'm eating kale chips and I'm eating carrots. You know, it's one of those things that you adapt to and then you learn, because we're human. We're still going to have cravings for shit food. It doesn't matter how much you eat well. But if you just avoid those temptations whatsoever, it makes it so much easier. Out of sight, out of mind. I mean, that's the easiest, it's the simplest thing I tell people. It's like, oh, I'm struggling because I have my sweet treat triggers. Don't have them then. You know what I mean? Like, don't. That's the biggest thing I tell people. I was like, if you know what's going to trigger you or it's going to derail your progress, get rid of it. That's the biggest thing. The same thing with people. If you have a negative person that you're in a weight loss thing and they're bitching about, they're trying to tempt you or enable you, get rid of the enablers. It's this lifestyle, this sport, everything, it is selfish to extent about you. So if something is making you uncomfortable or something's making you derail you from your goals, get rid of it. That's this, it's sounds mean, but it's the simplest way for you to stay on track and reach your goals, depending on how committed you are. I mean, and you say like you live by yourself, this is your lifestyle. I have a family and I still am committed to my goals. So I make sure that my goals and my family's goals all align, and that way we can all be successful together.
Yeah, I mean, your actions are what determine what your goal actually is. A lot of people could say things, but if you don't follow it with action, then it's not actually your goal. Your bodybuilding goals are important to you, so you follow suit with action. My bodybuilding goals are important to me. Every single decision I have made in the last 10 years has been to be a better bodybuilder. That's just how I live my life. So you need to decide, like anybody listening needs to decide, what kind of bodybuilder do you want to be? First timer doing a first show, your goal is just to give your very best effort every single day and follow the plan 100%. I think if you make that your goal and you're working with a competent coach who you gave enough time before the prep, then the end result will be a win regardless of where you place. Because there's a lot of personal fulfillment that will come from that whole experience. But then from there, you get to decide, like, do I want to keep doing this? Okay. The ante goes up the more you want to get deeper into this lifestyle. Now it becomes more year round. The off season matters. That dictates your prep. It's not just about, being on the grind and prep and doing it's year round now. No matter what life is throwing at you, you're still a bodybuilder year round. If you have aspirations to take it further. But that's why, always figure out what are your goals? Ask yourself, why do I want to keep competing? And if there's not a plausible reason, then don't force yourself to do it, because you'll hate it. You'll hate life. You'll waste a ton of time and money. So I think, just being clear on your goals, every year at least at a minimum, but every 6 months is kind of how I do it, even down to like quarters, like 3 months. Every 3 months, I have a list of goals. What am I working on this 3 months? What season am I in for bodybuilding right now? What am I like? For me, after enough time, it just becomes second nature. Like, I don't really need to revisit my bodybuilding goals. I know what I'm working towards. It's a long game. It just requires me to show up every day. But for newer people, you have to get clear on, the direction you're going to take, and then understand what's going to be required of you. You can't expect to half-ass your off season and be non-existent, turn it up in prep, and then get rewarded with the results that you want. You might get lucky and do well at a show. You might even win a show with that approach, but you're certainly not going to go to a national level show and place well and get your pro card if that's what you're after with that type of approach. It's an all-in mentality. So that, jogging all this back into what I was just talking about with, if it's an all-in mentality, then there's no excuses when it comes to the rebound phase, or you're not gonna make excuses. You're not gonna use body image stuff as an excuse. Like, you're female, speaking to females specifically, you're not the only female who's struggling with body image stuff. Suck it up. Realize that you're not the only one going through it, and other people are going to fall off and mess up their plans because of body image disorders or how they feel. Decide that you're not going to be one of those people. You're going to be one of the ones that holds strong and achieves your goals regardless of how you feel. And that's just something recent I've kind of come to as a coach. Like, not that I'm going to be hard on people. Like, you get what you give. If someone wants to cheat on their diet, I can't control that, but I'm certainly not going to create an environment to where it's acceptable, or I almost like justify it. Well, try better next week. Like, no, you need to address, why are you doing that? Address it. Or address the fact that maybe you just don't want to do bodybuilding at the level you say you do, and you just need to realign your goals. I think a lot of people make mistakes based off of two things: not knowing what to do and misinformation, which is huge right now. That's why I think hiring a coach is a rite of passage, at least to learn a baseline level of knowledge through working with someone to then maybe try to take it out on your own. But the second would be they're not actually aligned with the goals that they have. That's why I'm so big on goal set. Like you're not, because if you have a goal that's meaningful to you and you're excited about the pursuit of that goal, you're not going to do things that mess up that goal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I just look at it as like a misalignment of your goals. Like, oh, I want to turn pro, but you can't follow the diet for a week in the off season. You don't want to turn pro. You want to say that you want to turn pro to get the little bit of dopamine that you get from saying that to others and them being like, especially if it's someone who doesn't know anything about it, they're going to think you're really cool because you get to verbalize that you're attempting to go for a pro card. When in all reality, in a circle of people who are also in this life that are, you're a pro. I've done national level shows. We know a lot of pros. You can't say that statement and get the same like validation from someone like us because it's like, oh, you're just another person who says that, but your actions don't meet it.
Right.
So I think just constantly realigning yourself with, hey, what are my goals right now? What am I working towards? Until you get so good at it that it's like, you know what you're like, it's like second nature. You know, mine are written.
Yeah, they should be habits.
Yeah, habits and rituals are gonna, you know, I think that's what I try to focus on as a coach with competitors and lifestyles. Like, what are the habits and rituals needed to achieve the goal that you've come to me with? All right, we need to learn those and get good at them. Everything else will kind of fall into place if we really just focus on those habits and rituals and consistency. You know, discipline's on, you know, we can inspire discipline, but at the end of the day, it's on you. You know, I want Oreos too. I don't, you know, I will eat the entire package. It's not that I don't have, my thing with food is like, I know that I will eat all of that. Like I will devour cookies if they're in front of me. So I just don't ever have cookies in front of me. And if I ever do want a cookie and I'll have a, like, you know what I mean? It's like this whole food habit and food focus thing, I think is just laziness. I think it's more of just why don't you admit that every now and then you want to eat shit food, not feel guilty about it, do it, and then get back to like being clean. For a lifestyle competitor, the lifestyle person, the thing I try to get out is, you know, your goal isn't competing. Your goal isn't perfection. Your goal is maybe to be on a plan 330 days of the year. And then you get like 35 with holidays, vacation, social gatherings, whatever, to kind of have off-plan food, maybe some alcohol, maybe you're off the plan altogether, but you're following like a different sort of structure, whatever the case may be. And I work with all my people directly to kind of, you know, when are those times? Like I just had a client go on a honeymoon, like, okay, here's how I want you to go about it. I didn't make her take a food scale. I just said, let's eyeball things and let's always try to make the best choices with what's in front of us. Obviously, it's your honeymoon, enjoy food, have some dessert, stay active. If you want to do anything, you know, physical activity wise, if you want to train, go ahead, but it's not required as long as you get right back on the plan when you're back from your honeymoon.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest thing I see for people is they will do these events or they'll have these little snippets where they're, you know, enjoying themselves. And then it's getting back on track. And that's another thing that takes a lot of mental capacity to be able to just be like, hey, I had my fun for 2 days or one day. I got to get back on track. And that's really important with getting that back on, getting back with your supplementation, getting back with your normal food. You don't have to overcompensate with cardio or restricting your carbs or giving yourself. I see this all the time. It's like I ate bad for 2 days, so I'm just going to go keto or not have sugar and carbs. Don't do that. Just go back to your normal plan. Your body will eliminate the water weight, get back towards normal weight, and feel better. And that also leads into my biggest pet peeve, and it's been coming to light a lot more. Is I have a lot of women who struggle with taking their vitamins and supplements. They forget. And I always tell people, I'm like, the easiest thing for me, and I tell this is my trick of the trade. If you forget, because I've been doing it for years, so it's a normal thing for me to have my supplements. I go to the dollar store, Amazon, get the pill organizers. I do my morning pill organizer and my night pill organizer, and I have those, you know, right next to my sock drawer, so I'm able to take them. But I tell women, if you know you struggle with remembering, put them next to your toothbrush in the morning, put them in your console of your car. So when you start your car in the morning, put them where you're going to see them, because when you get into this lifestyle, supplementation and vitamins are just important aspect of it, especially when you're in competition mode, because those help fill nutritional gaps and supplement gaps that your body needs. You got to keep them in. They're so, so important with your energy and hormone levels. And I think that is so, so sloppy when you can't remember to take your vitamins. I mean, it's a normal. I remember when I was a child, my mom would be like, "Did you take your Flintstone vitamin?" I mean, it's ingrained in us. Most people know they should be taking some sort of vitamin or supplement just to help fill all of those voids that our body can't get from food. And that's one of those back to like the baseline, or back to the base, like your food and your supplements. Are you getting them in every day? And I think that's just a sign of laziness when you can't even remember to take your normal vitamin. Like it's simple, it's something so minuscule, something so, but it's so important in your day-to-day activities, your morning and night.
Well, yeah, I've never met someone who's doing everything else right in the plan. The only thing they're doing is forgetting that, like, so if you're, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're forgetful of that, how can I trust that you're eating all the meals? How can I trust that you're telling me if you're deviating from the plan or not, and when you're deviating? How can I trust that you're getting all your water in? I don't think anybody's perfect on the plan except the supplements or the one thing that they can't get. I think it's a matter of, again, habits and rituals. Give yourself a system that works for you to remember to take it. You know, for me, I take so many pills at once that, or so many, you know, over-the-counter supplements, that I have to use a bead organizer. It's like a, you know, which I got at Walmart, $4.
Yeah.
I can do 6 days, AM and PM at a time. So every, you know, it takes me like 15 minutes to load the thing up. It's very annoying. It's like playing Mancala. But when I see that that thing's filled for that's 6 days of perfection I've done right there, as long as I take them. And when I see that it's empty, it's like I just nailed 6 days. And it's those little wins that you can stack up, you know, even as drinking all your water, as easy as that is. It takes no genetic physical talent to drink water. You just have to be diligent about how you do it. So again, there's no excuse, no matter what. Like, say it to yourself if you're, you know, you're struggling to achieve your goal, but one of the things holding you back is you're forgetting something as simple as taking the supplements that are going to help you towards your goal. That's an easy fix. Fix the little things, and a lot of the big things like stress and all that stuff kind of even themselves out when you focus on you know, the little tasks or the little boxes that you have to check. But yeah, I'm the same. I don't understand it. Nobody told me to go buy a bead organizer. I just needed something to put, because I have a drawer full of bottles, and I was like, I'm tired of unscrewing bottles every day. So
I like doing my weekly vitamins. I think it's like therapeutic. I'm like, look at all the colors. I'm just like going in.
Yeah, you know, there is a, you tire. I just look at it as an investment in my health. Like, this is all to make me better towards what I'm doing in life. So I think we can kind of wrap it up there. I think, you know, a little bit of value. If you guys have any comments or anything that you want us to touch on, drop it in the comments below. You know, this is a female specific segment, trying to show the ladies some love. So don't be shy. If it's something you don't want to be, you know, public about, you can message one of us privately, and we'll bring it up on one of the future episodes. So, you know, this will come out after Christmas, but we'll, so it's in saying that, I hope everybody had a good Christmas. Any advice I can give is, don't let Christmas extend into the entire week into the new year. You know, that long of a being off is going to make you feel worse than feel better, and you'll start 2024 on a negative versus, you know, enjoy the holiday time, enjoy the family time, do something for yourself, you know, stay active with your cardio, your movement, keep training, you know, eat clean in between your holiday and family stuff, and start the new year on a wave of momentum rather than on a downward slide. So for Shannon, Seeley, I'm Tommy Stiles. This has been Female Bodybuilding, Girls in Gear. We're out of here.